goes by Mitchell, hangs in the air, start attacks the paint, dials it up, and in. Straight away three, and this is tremendous.
And now, talking all things world champion Celtics.
What dreams are made of.
The Sports Hub Celtics Show on 98.5 The Sports Hub. Brought to you by Bentley University, Direct Federal Credit Union, Corona, Chevy, Wendy's, and Shaw's and Star Market. Now, Gasper and Murray.
And welcome in, Sports Hub Celtics Show with a big game on tap later today. 3:30 tip, Game 3, Celtics Knicks, Madison Square Garden. And they're in a situation I don't think anyone would have predicted. I certainly wouldn't have. A week ago, down 0-2 in this series, a death sentence for most teams in this situation. But, look, the fact is, even as bad as they've looked, the way that they've closed these games, or didn't close these last two games to start the series against New York, they finished just one win short of the record for the most single-season road wins in NBA history. They've been better on the road than they were at home. And maybe that's just as a quick aside, Chris, maybe we didn't take into consideration how much they did kind of suck at home this year. And
fair
that
point.
played into these first two games. Madison Square Garden, incredibly difficult place to play. The real star power will be out for these games, not just a random Wahlberg and the guy that owns Strega. Like, real stars will be there today. And I actually
What about what's the guy's name? Millsy?
Oh, yeah, a rapper you've never heard of, couple of restaurant owners, guy that's had season tickets for like 50 years. Like, but like that's what makes us great. People actually care here. It's not about like, ooh, is the camera on me? Let me stunt for the camera. Like, let them know I'm a pseudo Knicks fan. But I'm shocked that they're in this position. I still think they're going to win these next two games. They come back 2-2. I actually think this ends in 6. I still
Me
do.
too. Celtics in 6, baby.
Yeah. But the way that they have blown these games. And the Knicks have shown me something in terms of grit, mentality, 20-point comebacks, like all of that. I give them credit, but I still don't think that they're very good. This, to me, these first two games are more about the Celtics and then punching themselves in the face.
Yeah, it has been stark. I mean, you see them blow 20-point leads, as you mentioned, in the second half. It's not like you're blowing a 20-point lead you had in the first half. I mean, these are late third quarter 20-point leads that they can't hold on to. It's been amazing to watch how poorly they've shot the basketball in the fourth quarters of these games. It's been absolutely ridiculous in terms of what they've done with fourth quarter shooting. Overall, 9 for 45 in the fourth quarter in these games, 4 of 26, which is 15.4% on the threes. And for them to be in this situation, particularly with the backdrop of new ownership and uncertainty about how long you can keep this team together and with a $500 million roster in the second apron and all this, I mean, this would go down as a major, major squander if they were to get bounced in the second round by a Knicks team that during the regular season went 0-10 against the top three teams in the NBA, that being the OKC Thunder, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Celtics.
What's most to blame here? Is it a broken offense? Tatum's performance in these first two games hasn't been great. The reliance on the three, this stupid Hacker Robinson tactic, something I think might be underplayed. I mentioned to you yesterday in your spot on Felger and Maz. Is this thing, the mentality of it catching up with them, and that like they wiped their ass with this Knicks team. And were dominant in 3 out of the 4 games, and I think really to me in all 4, but 3 out of the 4 in the regular season, and they didn't take them seriously enough. And I used the analogy of like this is like the Patriots-Jets thing from 2010 when they crushed them on Monday Night Football early December. A month later, felt like they showed up flat, didn't take them seriously. They lose in the divisional round, and all of a sudden you're like, what the hell happened? That to me feels like maybe what's going on here with the Celtics in the way that they're handling the Knicks.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I agree with you. I don't think it's specific to just the Knicks either. And I thought about this the other night and some of the defiance you get from them about the shots and the quality of the shots. And I gave you that number on Felger and Maz yesterday. I can't take credit for this. This is Brian Barrett from The Ringer talking about how the
lack of ball movement.
No, lack of ball movement. Against the Knicks, the Celtics has made 254.5 passes per game. By comparison, the team that finished last in the league in passes per game during the regular season was the Houston Rockets at 262.3. So I think that there is a level of arrogance with the Celtics. We thought getting over the hump and winning the championship last year would make them better, and it has, but it's made them better and worse. I think that they still carry some of that.
You should just go away.
Yes. Like, we gave you our best shot. Don't you know we're better than you? Just stay down on the mat. And because it was so easy for them last year, going 16-3 and not having they didn't have to face anybody like Brunson in games that really mattered because the players that were all good, Jimmy Butler, Donovan Mitchell, Tyrese Halliburton, were injured. And the Mavs series was a cakewalk, and you had a hex on Kyrie Irving because of his. Like, you didn't have to face anybody who was clutch like this in games that mattered. You had such a cakewalk to the championship. So I think that has created sort of a false sense of comfort for them, and also a heightened sense of we have all the answers, which you're seeing, which is playing into the fact that they're not making the adjustments they need to make in the series, which is also disappointing to me, Jim, because I really respected and liked the way they played against Orlando. Orlando was hell-bent on taking away those threes, and they did, and the Celtics said, go ahead, take away our threes. We're still going to smash you, and they did.
So part of that, I'm glad you mentioned this, because I loved the way that they played that series. Like, okay, you can win another way. And even when Porzingis wasn't going, they got him going in, I think it might have been game 4. Go to the basket, just feed him in the paint. Like, it's like, okay, he doesn't have to be so three-centric, and it's like you can win another way. The other part of this mentality thing that I can't help shake thinking is it felt to me like from a Joe Mazzulla standpoint, he was frustrated by that. Like, yeah, we won, but we didn't win the way I like to win. So we're going to just keep being bombs away in this series to prove a point. I'm convinced, like, especially the first game when they shoot 61 threes? 60. This was like, we'll show you. We're going to win the way we want to win. And it's like, no. Like, why are you falling into this trap? And
that was crazy, too, that game, because they got up 20, and the next 10 possessions, they all attempted threes. And it wasn't
that third quarter.
I'm going to borrow a page out of your book and use another Patriots-related analogy, because that's a great point you raised about Mazzulla. It's not enough for him to win. He has to win his way. It reminds me of Mike Martz in Super Bowl 36.
Yeah.
Belichick was like, no, but we'll let you run the ball. And he's like, no, we're the greatest show on turf.
We pass.
I want to win this way. And he would not give into it. And it's one of the reasons the Patriots upset the Rams. I think that there's some Mike Martz and Mazzulla here, where it's like, it's not enough to win. We have to win in the dogmatic fashion that I deem to be the best way to play.
We're going to talk to Bobby Manning, Celtics reporter, who is at Madison Square Gardens. Bobby Manning of CLNS Media. We'll get his perspective on these first couple of games, give us a Game 3 preview from the belly of the beast as he joins us from New York next here on the Sports Hub Celtics Show.
You're listening to the 98.5 The Sports Hub Celtics Show. We're back to the Sports Hub Celtics Show on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Celtics Knicks Game 3, Madison Square Garden, tip-off 3:30. Catch it here on 98.5 Sports Hub. Sean Grandy, Cedric Maxwell give us more insight on today's game and the series thus far. Joining us on the 98.5 Sports Hub expert hotline, it's Bobby Manning covering the Celtics for CLNS Media, among other places. Good afternoon, Bobby. How are you?
Good, Jim. How you doing? Good to be here.
Very good. Are you in the belly of the beast right now? Have you made your way over to the Garden yet, or are you still in your hotel?
Still in my hotel, still camped out from last night, so I'll head over there shortly. I do want to see the scene, though. It's going to be crazy. I've never been to a playoff game at MSG, and this is obviously their biggest game since the 90s, probably, right? So,
yeah. Well, you can just tell by the secondary market. The ticket prices are, I think it's like $700 is the cheapest to get in. It's going to be bananas.
I saw it go over 700, yeah, and there'll be people standing in the hallways, and I'm sure they're just going to pack some extra people in there. And it's such a weird arena. I'm sure you've been there, Jim, right? Like, they got, like, the weird thing hanging over the top, and then, like, there's, like, a second level below it. Like, it's just all packed in there, and they can fit so many people in there all the way up to that ring at the top. So, yeah, I can't wait to see what this thing's going to look like.
So give us the Bobby Manning blame pie for these first couple of games. Who or what is the mentality, their offense? Like, what's most to blame, in your opinion, for the fact they're 0-2?
Yeah, I think it's a split between Tatum and Joe. And, I'll start with the Joe stuff because I think it's so easy to go to the coach with a lot of these decisions. But some of them have been baffling throughout this series, like small stuff. Like if you're trying to space the floor in game one, you're not going to Sam Hauser in that first half before he comes in and gets hurt right away in the second half. I haven't loved the Mitchell Robinson fouling in this series, and I've obviously asked Joe a lot about that, and I'm sure you guys have heard the sound. Like they're just stuck with this plus-minus thing with him that I don't really understand. He hasn't scored a ton. I know he's impacting the glass, but it just feels distracting in the moments where they've done it, especially late in game two. And then, I just haven't loved the way the offense has functioned. You're not seeing a lot of layers to it. You're mostly just seeing them line up mismatches, play slow with the lead, obviously force up some really difficult shots in moments. There were threes in game one, there were twos in game two, and they just haven't shown a great ability to access the paint, and I think that falls on Tatum. He hasn't been able to beat his matchups. He hasn't been able to create separation. He hasn't passed as often as we saw during the regular season out of some of those defensive areas. And the Knicks have made it tough, but when you have 20-point leads in each of these games, you do just have to create points to be able to close it out and narrow that gap with each passing possession there, and they haven't been able to do that. Brown hasn't been great either. There's blame up and down the lineup. I don't go to the Porzingis stuff like a lot of fans have. I mean, he just can't play, it looks like, and that's something that they're going to have to adjust to today if that continues. You maybe try him like one stint and then get away from him if he looks like he did in game two.
Yeah, Bobby, I want to pick up on the Porzingis thing because you're right. I mean, it does affect what they can do, his availability or lack thereof, although I thought he was pretty good in game two in his second stint. The first stint was a disaster, but the second stint, I thought he gave you something. And I just looking at their offense and the way they played in this game and talking about getting in the paint, I feel like this is a series where they really do miss Porzingis and his ability to operate from the high post, take advantage of some mismatches, space the floor, and part of that when I look at Al Horford too, it seems like they've just relegated Al or Al has just relegated himself to shooting threes.
Yeah, the Al struggles late in that fourth quarter last game were really concerning. I mean, he looked like he had nothing left, and you don't see him play a full fourth quarter often. So him having to do something like that is concerning if Porzingis can't play a normal amount of minutes here. But, as much as it was great to see Porzingis hit a shot and hit a three and that stuff there, you also saw him struggle to post up Mikal Bridges, who's like 6-7 inches shorter than him. You saw him lost on defense on Bridges at one point. Doesn't really look like he knows where he's supposed to be when he gets into these games, when that game specifically off the bench. So I haven't loved just the way he looks out there. And, this isn't a time to be getting him feeling out the game and, seeing if he can make some shots and stuff like that. I think you really have to just see if he has it for one stint. And then if he doesn't, you get away from him and go to Luke Cornett, who I think has looked pretty good in these games. And Horford's just going to have to hold it down, or maybe you go small. Like, they're going to have to get outside their comfort zone a little bit with some of the stuff that they have to do now that they're in this position in the series, because this is pretty much game 7. Like, you go down 3-0 in this series, you're done. So they're in a really difficult spot. They put themselves in it. No one has played great in this series. I do think that there are a lot of second guesses on the Missoula front so far that have baffled me. I thought he had the coaching advantage going into this series, considering some of the struggles the Knicks had during the regular season. But, credit to Tom Thibodeau. He kept some stuff in his back pocket. It looked like, obviously, defensively, that's really bothered them.
Yeah, I want to ask you, do you anticipate, you're at all these Joe press conferences, you, B-Rob, you guys ask some insightful questions. Do you anticipate adjustments, tweaks, changes from Joe? Or, does he really sort of believe what he sort of said to B-Rob? Like, what a novel idea. They made the threes. That basically water will find its level. The Celtics were a top 10 team in terms of three-point shooting percentage during the regular season, and we know how horrible they've been from three, 25 of 100 so far in this series. Does he just believe it's about the process and staying the course, or do you think he'll actually make some adjustments strategically or in terms of the rotation?
I think they have to be who they are in terms of the shooting. Like, they can't get away from it and try to force the issue inside, because the Knicks really are packing the paint. Like, there is not a great lane to get to the basket against them. And, you have to force that issue at times and maybe pass it out of there. I know Tatum only had 7 drives in game 1, which was down from 10 last round, and 12 last round and 10 during the regular season. So, he's driving less, he's attacking less. That was effective for him last round, so I think that's an adjustment he's going to have to make on his own. I don't understand some of the shots he's taking right now. They're just, some of them are killers, and he's moving in slow motion right now. And I get that you want to cut down how many possessions the other team has when they're trying to come back, but this team needs to move right now, and that's the biggest adjustment I would make, is just play with some more pace in this game. Get into your offense earlier. Even you look at that last possession last game. that is as symbolic of anything as of their issues right now, is that they weren't able to get 2 shots potentially off there. They weren't able to get 1 off, and you have time for 2 shots potentially there. So the way they've limited themselves offensively by getting into their actions with like 10 seconds left on the shot clock has been so frustrating to watch. And I have had concerns about their pace late this season, and it definitely came back to haunt them in that game, and then at times in game 1 specifically too. But I'd go to a little more Pritchard, even if that requires taking Horford off the floor. I know that there's rebounding concerns there if you're playing without a center, but if you're going to shoot threes, if you're going to want to speed things up, if you want to have your most versatile array of offensive creators out there, and obviously it's offense that's killing them right now, not defense, I think that's an adjustment you could go to as well. They didn't do that during the year, but again, this is a pretty dire situation you're in right now where you have to try some new stuff. Hauser's obviously not going to go today, so you're down a guy on the depth chart, and then I really don't have great confidence in Porzingis going into this game. So as much as I think the shooting can turn around, Chris, and I think that will be a big part of them coming back and winning this series, the injuries and illness they're dealing with right now gives me a lot of concern going into the late stages of the series.
It's Bobby Manning covering the Celtics for CLNS Media, joining us from New York ahead of today's Game 3 between the C's and Knicks. And Bobby, is there maybe even a case to be made that the Knicks haven't played their best game yet in the series from an offensive standpoint?
Yeah, definitely. And Bridges, I think you saw him. He didn't score a point before the fourth quarter in that game, and then he scored 14 to close it out. So he turned the corner from struggles to begin the series. I think he had 8 points in like 51 minutes in game 1. It's ridiculous how many minutes those guys play on that side. Josh Hart got going in that game. I don't like how the Celtics have ignored him, because he's not just a guy who's going to sit on the three-point line and take the threes. He's going to attack. He's going to grab offensive rebounds. He's going to be really dynamic and active if you're ignoring him. So, I think there's a greater upside he showed in game 2. And then Brunson, as great as he's been in the clutch, hasn't really had that big Brunson game yet. I think they're 38 from 3 for the series. OG was awesome in game 1, shooting the ball. I think he hit 6 threes there. So, there's definitely a higher ceiling for all of them collectively there, especially Towns. And, to go out of 2 games where you held Towns to 1 3-point attempt, down 0-2 is crazy. To lose a game where you only give up 91 points in game 2 is out of this world. So there's definitely concern here that you're hoping that the shooting swings in your direction, but if the shooting swings in their direction, or you have one more flop the rest of the way here, you're effectively done in this series. So there's so little room for error with the math that they've left themselves that I think that's where you have to get into being more urgent with your coaching, with your approach to each possession in a game like this. Like, I want to see more timeouts if things aren't going well. There's got to be some urgency here, because, again, this is your Game 7 here. You're not coming back from a 3-0 deficit.
And where do you stand on the Hacker Robinson tactic?
I can't stand it, Jim. And I listen to you guys all week too, talking about it, and I can't agree more. It's desperate. It's unnecessary. It's not even impactful. And I asked Tibbs before the game, you were in there, Chris.
Yes.
What do you guys think of that? What do you think of them doing that? And he was like, it's great. We can set our defense. We can
get to the bonus faster, which is how they won the game.
And how dumb was that, putting them in the bonus going into the late stages of that game? And again, you're up 4. All you need is a stop or 2 or one more basket to shut that game out. And then what really blows my mind about that is that Robinson's back on the floor for the final 2 possessions there. And what's their game plan? Attacking Robinson. So why wouldn't you want him on the floor if that's the guy you're trying to attack in that circumstance? I thought it was overthinking. I thought it was Joe trying to, put his imprint on the game at that moment, really, twirl like a coaching, masterclass right there, but it blew up in his face. And I thought it blew up in their face in game 1 too, because you think about it, Porzingis left that game, and all the intentional fouls that Luke Cornett was doing on Robinson put him in foul trouble later. So even though Robinson shot 3 for 10 at the line in that game, I thought it hurt the Celtics later too. So yeah, I want to see them get away from that in this game. I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think it's effective.
Yeah, that is a great point you're bringing up here. So, as you mentioned, the margin for error is small. History not on the Celtics side here. There have been 35 times previously in previous postseasons, and we're not counting Indiana, Cleveland, where a team lost the first 2 games of a best-of-7 series at home. Only 5 of those teams have been able to prevail in the end. We all know that the Celtics' best basketball is better than the Knicks' best basketball. But when you look at that and just sort of how stark those numbers are, what is your concern level, or is it mitigated at all by the fact that the Celtics have been an excellent road team, one of the best road teams in the history of the NBA?
Yeah, I feel the latter. I have confidence in them going on the road, even more confidence than I have in them at home right now, just based on the way the season's gone. They've had a lot of wacky losses at TD Garden this year, so I feel good about them going into New York. I don't worry about the atmosphere with them. In fact, I think the crowd, being hostile and giving them middle fingers or whatever they're going to do in there is just better than, the tight crowd that you felt at TD Garden late in that game too. I think it's better that they're getting away from Boston in this situation, because that would be one nervous crowd if this game was in Boston right now. So I think that's good for them. And then, you look at some of the historical stuff with, the 2-0 lead that you talked about and some of that stuff. A lot of teams are winning game sevens on the road recently. I think 2 of them did in that first round. That never happened in the past. I'm seeing more teams lose game ones, which was a death sentence previously, and win the series. And then I think that Thunder winning game 2 the other night broke a 12-game win streak for road teams in this postseason. So I don't know how much home court matters anymore, and I don't know how much some of these historic stats in terms of teams going up by 2-0 or 1-0 or whatever it might be matter anymore. So I don't put too much stock in that, this being that insurmountable comeback for the Celtics, especially when they're a better team and they've played better in this series. And I don't think the Knicks have done anything that's too overwhelming to overcome. You've been up 20 in both of the games, so it's not like you're going into New York saying, oh, how can they beat this team? They were in position to beat this team and then squandered it. And the Knicks only have 5-6 depth guys, so the depth concerns that you have with the Celtics right now don't worry as much. I think they're going to win this series, guys. What concerns me is that some of the offensive issues that have popped up in both series so far make me less confident in them winning a championship. And you see some of the stuff that's going on out in the West. You see some of the stuff even on the other side of the bracket with Indiana. I have concerns about this team winning a championship right now. And obviously this series is going to have to go 6-7 games for them to win it now. That puts even more strain on you. That puts even more potential for injury on you. And they're already pretty beat up as a roster right now. So I think this 2-0 deficit might not have cost them this series, but it might have cost them the championship.
I'm with you on this.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I think they come back 2-2 and for Game 5 Wednesday, but repeating, I don't know. But same thing. Do you think it's 2-2 come Wednesday?
I think so. Yeah, I think they're going to win these games in New York, and then the Knicks might take that Game 5 or something. I feel like it's going to go 7 games, and then whichever team is in a better health situation, physical situation at that point is going to probably be the one that wins that Game 7. So I'm not going to make a big prediction about the series right now. I want to see where this Porzingis thing goes, which again, really concerning to have a guy like that that's starting at center for you looking like that right now. That could be what costs him this series if that just goes sideways and he can't even play the rest of the way. So that's what I'll be looking out for today. They had some hope that he would feel better, going into this after the 2 days off here. So I'm going to be anxiously watching that, because I don't think Horford can log 35, 40 minutes for the length of a series if Porzingis isn't able to play at this point on. And then you're in a lot of trouble at that point.
I know you hit on this a little bit, but I do want to sort of circle back to it because it's a big topic of discussion in terms of the national media, and that's obviously Jason Tatum, 12 for 42 in these first couple of games, but 1 for 12, Bobby, in the fourth quarter, and the one was the Mitchell Robinson. He got the matchup after Horford set the screen, and he blew by him for the dunk. So, that was really a gimme. So, you can sort of say he hasn't hit a shot in the fourth quarter. And I know we talked about, was it Joe? Is it Tatum? But I feel like we have this discussion, every postseason. He had said earlier in the postseason that he was playing freer than ever after winning a championship. He said that after they vanquished Orlando. Do you feel like Tatum and this team, are over that hump because they won the championship? Or maybe did we sort of overrate that because they didn't have the toughest road?
Yeah, they definitely caught some breaks last postseason. You knew this road was going to be tougher this year. You even showed in the first round, which I thought was pretty difficult for a 5-game series. You do want to see them affirm themselves as a dynasty, an all-time team with a win this year. I think I don't get caught up in the stuff from last year. Like, did they get breaks? Did they have the easiest road ever? That sort of thing. Even Tatum's performance, not winning Finals MVP, I would have voted him Finals MVP last year based on some of the passing and leading the series in points, assists, rebounds like he did. Brown had a strong case too, but it's not like Tatum wasn't even close in that discussion. He was right there with him in terms of his performance in that series. But let's be real, he hasn't been good enough in this series specifically right now, and it's shot making, but it's also approach. He should not be floating out to the three-point line to the degree that he has and not making himself a threat inside. Because, again, even if he's not scoring, even if he's shooting poorly, he has to be the guy that's setting everybody else up to succeed in that spot. And he has so much help around him right now. You see Holiday and how well he's played in this series. You see White, who hasn't shot well, but I think has had some good moments and can create for this offense if he defers to him a little bit. Even Brown, I think, has had some great moments of aggressiveness here where I think Tatum can get off the ball a little bit and play off what Brown's doing attacking the paint. So, yeah, it's been an approach thing. He didn't give himself an opportunity to get to the free throw line with the way he played in both of those games, which I thought was what he did great in round one. And, you just look at the playoff stats for him right now. He's a 34% career three-point shooter in the playoffs, which I know it's going to be tougher to shoot in the playoffs and there's going to be more pressure on you and all that. But it does make you think about the shot selection with him and whether he should be as reliant on the three in this situation if he's not going to be hitting shots out there. Especially, it's situational too, right? Like you're up 20 in a game. You shouldn't be launching away while you're trying to just score and, stagger the other team's comeback right there. Like missing 14 straight shots like they did in game two is just leaving the door wide open for the Knicks to get back into it. So, I'd love to see him post up more right now. I'd love to see them screen and roll him, get him into the pocket, find him some opportunities, just play close to the basket. Because to me, he's not a shooter. He's a power forward, and his game is overpowering players in the post, really making his imprint in the paint. And I know that, offensively they get some benefits out of having him, shoot a lot of threes and pull out the defense. But when the shots aren't there, you got to find a different approach.
All right, Bobby, great stuff. Appreciate you taking the time. Enjoy your first playoff action at Madison Square Garden later today. Don't pull any fire alarms like those lunatics did here the other night.
I'm still trying to figure out who did that.
Bobby Manning of CLNS Media. Give him a follow on Twitter X at @RealBobManning. Appreciate you taking the time, Bobby.
Thank you, guys. Good talking to you as always.
Thanks, Bobby.
You have time to join us here on the Sports Hub Celtics Show. We have yet to talk to you, the people. Your thoughts heading into Game 3 at 3:30 this afternoon. A couple open lines. You want to join us? We'll get right to your calls coming up next at 617-779-0985 here on the Sports Hub Celtics Show.
This is the Sports Hub Celtics Show. Chris Gasper, Big Jim Murray, the Sports Hub Celtics Show.
All right, good spot from Bobby Manning, who's in New York ahead of Game 3. Celtics-Knicks tip-off 3:30. Let's hear from you, your thoughts ahead of this game here on the Sports Hub Celtics Show. Brad in South Carolina, you're up here on the Sports Hub Celtics Show. Hey, Brad.
Hey, how we doing?
Good, what's up?
Hey, just want to start by saying, obviously, the Celtics, I think, shoot way too many threes and can sometimes shoot themselves out of the games. However, if you look at last series, you think that negatively impacted them? And what I mean by that is they weren't calling anything driving to the basket. Like, it was a bloodbath, and they couldn't get a call. And not that they're not driving in the basket because they're not getting calls, but at the same time, I think there's a drastic difference.
So a cause and effect of we took a beating, we weren't getting calls going into the paint, so let's revert back to what we normally do, or we took too much of a beating, so we don't want to do that much? I let him go, but do you think maybe that's part of the mentality? I don't. I just think it's like this is how we've always done this.
Yeah,
We're more
I think it's more
being
that.
bums away.
And that would be if it were what he's saying, it would be bothersome because then that would send the message that
They're soft.
that's how you beat the Celtics is you get physical with them. I mean, one of the things we didn't mention with Bobby, but he brought it up in terms of Tatum. It is stunning to see he has 8 turnovers and 9 free throw attempts in this series. And look, I was at game 2. It was really physical. They didn't call a lot of fouls on both sides in that.
I think it's league-wide, not to cut you off, but, I mean, did you watch this OKC-Denver game?
I didn't watch it.
SGA is hunting for fouls, and it's clear, and good for the refs. They're like, we're not giving you that. It's not the regular season. Go F yourself.
Really?
Oh, it's great to watch.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And so, yeah, that is concerning because Tatum is a guy that should be able to get to the line when you look at that comparison. But I hope that's not the case because then that would say that Orlando put out some sort of blueprint for how to, take the Celtics off their game in a series that the Celtics really dominated in terms of that. I was very hopeful after that Orlando series that they were going to take the lessons they learned from it and what they were able to do with their 3-ball being limited and mitigated and say, okay, this is just another, club in our bag that we can pull out when we need to. And instead, it just sort of seems like, we use that on that one course. We're never going to use it again.
Yeah, we were too uncomfortable with that. That's not what we do. Lakar in Boston with a rotation question. Hello, Lakar.
Hey, what's going on? But you know what, though? Well, before I get to the Celtics, I hope y'all don't listen to Stephen A. Smith on the NBA countdown today. That guy is going to be going crazy. But anyhow, where is Peyton Pritchard? It just seems like ever since he won Sixth Man of the Year, he fell off the planet of the earth. I mean, you look, both games, they lost total by 4 points. If they attack the basket, if Peyton Pritchard drives in like he's capable of doing, they will be up 2 games to nothing. I think it comes down to Peyton Pritchard in the bench. Besides Jason Tatum scoring somewhere in the 30s, because him scoring 13 points and things like that, that's not going to get it. Injury, it has something to do with it, but for the most part, they had 20-point leads and stuff, so they're not going to use the injury thing with a 20-point lead.
You don't want him out there too much because he's a defensive liability, but how about in a situation like the end of Game 1? There's a situation you can maybe have Pritchard on.
I actually thought he played pretty well in Game 2. I mean, he only attempted 6 shots. He had 13 points. He got to the free throw line 5 times. Now, he did take a couple of threes. He took that one heat check 3 where I was like, give me a break in the fourth quarter. And then he airballed that 34-footer. I was like, come on. But it's interesting when you look at him because of his shot attempts in this series, he has 15 shot attempts, 14 are 3. And he is a guy that can get into the paint, that is crafty with his finishes, can do some other stuff. So you do wonder, is there more he can do, and why is he relegating himself or being relegated to just a 3-point guy? Does part of that have to do with Hauser being out, and that changes his role a little bit? I don't know, but I think there are other ways he can be impactful besides just scoring and just shooting threes. Like, for example, in Game 1, all 9 of his shot attempts were threes. I would like to see that. And that speaks to what Bobby said about pace, because Pritchard is a guy who can push the ball and get out in transition, and you're not really seeing that from the Celtics. And when you did see it in Game 2, what you saw was a botched 2-on-1 between Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I mean, that was one of the worst moments of that game.
Chet in Somerville on the Celtics. Go ahead, Chet.
Hey, thanks for taking the call, guys. Quickly, I think the Nature Valley Oats and Honey Bar should be calling the Celtics the way they crumbled for a sponsorship after Game 1 and 2.
What a terrible snack that thing is. Oh, it just ends up. You eat that in your car.
Crumbs everywhere.
Oh, just the worst.
And if you have one of them in a backpack,
forget
it's
it.
Like, I have a backpack. Like, those crumbs have been there for over a decade. Like,
absolute blowout of a snack. But
coalesce to the
what I was going to say about the Celtics' arrogance is, I feel like they look at the Knicks the way that the Warriors and the Heat used to look at the Celtics as, you guys haven't arrived yet. We look at you as the little brother. You guys think because you made it to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2018 that you're this great team. And I think the Celtics wanted to have that over the Knicks after sweeping them this year. The other thing I will say is it's unacceptable if they don't come back and win in this series. Down 0-2, you were down 0-3 2 years ago against the Miami Heat,
right,
who looked down on you after you beat them in 7 in 2022. And that was Mazzulla's first year coaching. He was going up against Spoelstra, who's one of the best tacticians in the league. I think that with this roster, even being down 0-2, it's unacceptable, but can Mazzulla channel some of that energy, some of that mindset to say, hey, we were down 0-3 against a far more physical, a far more polished Jimmy Butler Miami Heat team. Why can't we do that against this Knicks team who is just schlepped together this year?
He's got ammo because they've done it before. I think what would get in the way, if I was in the player's shoes here, is that it'd be easy for Tatum, Porzingis, other guys that are banged up, Brown, to say, like, we got ours last year. Like, let's pack it in. I don't know if you would have that same dog mentality down 0-3 to this Knicks team that you did Miami a few years ago.
Well, I think this speaks to one of the questions about the Celtics. And I thought it was a question that had been answered, but now I'm wavering. They were so dominant last year on that way to the title, and it was incredibly impressive. But the reality of this group in terms of Tatum, Brown, Horford is that they have not gotten all the way to the end and lifted the Larry O'Brien trophy in any sort of setting where they've been pressed.
Yeah.
Like, that hasn't happened. You know, there are years, 2020 was an opportunity, obviously, in the bubble. And I remember Danny Ainge saying, we feel like we were the better team, and they lost to the Heat. 2022, a lot of people thought they were the better team against Golden State. They had control of that series. It looked like they lost that one. We talked about 2023, the caller just did, in terms of they were better than Miami. Yes, they came all the way back, but then they lost Game 7. So I was like, hey, they got over the hump last year. This isn't an issue. I think they've responded and spoken like they got over the hump. It's not an issue anymore. But now I'm kind of wavering, and I'm like, well, is this when have they have delivered when pressed at times? The Milwaukee series in 22, the Sixers series in 23.
Game 1 against the Pacers last year.
Oh, that was a great game. Yes, but I'm saying, I guess what I'm saying is there hasn't been a situation where they've been pressed in a series and pushed to the limit, and then they've gotten all the way through to the end. And because remember, with the Golden State series, a lot of it was like, man, they kind of got beat up and ran out of gas after the Milwaukee series, and then going 7 with Miami. It was like, they got beat up. They kind of ran out of gas. And even Miami, Game 7, obviously Tatum got hurt with the ankle, but it was like, oh man,
turnovers by Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, all these turnovers, and they kind of ran out of gas with the path. So to Bobby's point that he made earlier, it's not just about winning this series, which we all three of us think they're going to do. It's, can they get pressed in a series, overcome it, and then get all the way to the end and win it?
All right, while we are formatically wrapping up the Sports Hub Celtics show, a bunch of you still hang and want to talk about them. We'll take a break, do the headlines, and we'll go right back to your Celtics calls, as the Celtics will be driving to the rim today. And the drive to the rim brought to you by Chevy. Got a closer look at Chevy's award-winning lineup at your New England Chevy dealers. Find exciting offers, too, on the powerful Silverado and feature-packed all new.
What does Chevy have for three-pointers? Does Chevy have any long-range EVs? Because that's what the Celtics are. They're a long-range EV. They're not driving anywhere.
Listen, Chevy's driving to the rim. That's what the copy says, Chris. Like, don't get in the way of the copy. We'll be right back with your Celtics calls. That Nature Valley bar, by the way, great point by that caller. Just fill your backpack with dust. Same thing. A terrible snack. All right, take a break here. Come back. Long commercial-free segment. Headlines, more of your Celtics calls coming up on Gasper and Murray.
We'll have more of the Sports Hub Celtics show next. Banner 18 in the books. Banner 19 on the way. The Sports Hub Celtics show. 98.5 The Sports Hub.